Nobody has ever said this to Muhammad Ali's face. Not Joe Frazier, not Sonny Liston, not any heavyweight on the planet. But in the spring of 1970, inside a private boxing gym in Los Angeles with the doors locked and only a handful of people watching, Ali leaned over the ropes, pointed his glove at a man half his size, and said 5 words that changed everything. "Hit me. Just one punch." The man he was talking to weighed 140 pounds, stood 5'7", had never boxed a single round in his life. And what happened next in that gym became a secret that Ali's inner circle kept quiet for decades. Los Angeles, 1970. Not the Hollywood version. Not the glamorous strip of Sunset Boulevard with convertibles and movie stars. The other Los Angeles. The one with cracked sidewalks and graffiti-tagged warehouses south of Wilshire. The one where fighters train in buildings that smell like mildew and old leather. Where the heavy bags are patched with duct tape and the speed bags have been punched so many times the swivel mounts are stripped bare. There's a gym here, no sign out front, no name on the door, just a rusted metal entrance off an alley behind a dry cleaning shop. You'd walk past it 100 times and never know what happens inside. That's by design. This gym isn't open to the public, isn't listed in any directory, isn't a place where weekend warriors come to shadowbox and take selfies. This is where serious people come to work. Professional fighters, trainers who've been in the game for 30 years, men who understand combat at a cellular level. The gym belongs to a former middleweight contender who retired after a detached retina ended his career in 1963. He converted the warehouse space himself, poured the concrete for the ring platform, welded the corner posts from scrap iron, hung the ropes, built something real with his hands because the sport gave him everything, and then took his vision in one eye. This was his way of staying connected. On this particular afternoon, the gym is almost empty. 2 sparring partners hitting pads in the far corner. A trainer wrapping a young fighter's hands near the water fountain. Quiet, routine, nothing special about the day. Until a black Cadillac pulls up outside. Engine still running. 2 men step out from the back seat. The first man is enormous, 6'3", 215 pounds of sculpted athletic perfection. He moves with a lightness that contradicts his size, almost floating across the pavement. His face is unmistakable, known on every continent, recognized in villages that don't have running water. Muhammad Ali, the heavyweight champion of the world, the most famous athlete alive. The second man is harder to place. Compact, lean, dark hair pushed back, wearing sunglasses and a plain black shirt. He walks differently than Ali, not with the same theatrical bounce, but with something equally dangerous. Economy, every step measured, no wasted energy, no unnecessary movement, like a cat crossing a ledge 40 stories up. Calm, precise, aware of everything. They enter the gym together. The 2 sparring partners in the corner stop mid-combination. The trainer drops the hand wrap. Everyone stares. Muhammad Ali just walked into their gym on a random Tuesday afternoon, without warning, without an entourage. Just him and this smaller man nobody recognizes. Ali scans the room, nods to the men in the corner, flashes that legendary smile, the one that disarmed opponents before the first bell ever rang. He's comfortable here, been in 1,000 gyms like this, knows the smell, knows the feel, knows the unspoken rules. He walks directly to the ring, runs his hand along the top rope, tests the tension. Good ring. Solid. The gym owner emerges from his office in the back, sees Ali, nearly drops his coffee mug, stammers something. Ali waves it off. "Relax, brother. We just need the space for an hour. Private." The owner nods. Doesn't ask questions. You don't question Muhammad Ali. Not in a boxing gym. Not anywhere. Ali turns to the smaller man. They've been talking about this for weeks. The conversation that started at a dinner party in Hollywood, introduced through mutual connections in the entertainment industry. The smaller man had been making films, building a reputation in martial arts circles. Ali had seen clips of his screen tests, seen the speed, seen something that intrigued him, and Ali was not a man who was easily intrigued. Because here's what people need to understand about Muhammad Ali in 1970. He wasn't just a boxer. He was a student of fighting, obsessively curious about combat in all its forms. He studied wrestling footage from the Olympics, watched judo tournaments on grainy imported tapes from Japan, read about fencing theory and how sword fighters create angles of attack. His mind never stopped analysing, never stopped searching for edges, for insights, for anything that could deepen his understanding of what it meant to fight another human being. So when someone told him about a Chinese martial artist in Los Angeles who moved faster than anything anyone had ever seen, Ali didn't laugh it off, didn't dismiss it the way most boxers would have. He got curious, made calls, arranged a meeting, and that meeting led to this moment, this empty gym, this locked door, this afternoon that nobody was supposed to know about. The smaller man took off his sunglasses, folded them carefully, set them on the ring apron, looked up at Ali with steady, unreadable eyes. His name was Bruce Lee, and he had absolutely no idea what Ali was about to propose. Ali climbed through the ropes first, moved to the center of the ring and started bouncing on his toes. That famous Ali shuffle, feet dancing, shoulders rolling, hands loose at his sides. Even in a private gym with no cameras and no crowd, the man performed. Couldn't help it. Movement was his language. Rhythm was his native tongue. Bruce stayed on the outside of the ropes, watching, not the showmanship, not the footwork everyone always talked about. He was watching something else entirely. The transitions, the micro-adjustments Ali made between movements, how his weight shifted from ball to heel in fractions of a second, how his center of gravity never fully committed to one direction, always balanced, always ready to change. Bruce catalogued these details the way an engineer studies a bridge under stress, not admiration, analysis. Ali noticed him watching, stopped bouncing, leaned on the ropes and looked down at Bruce with that trademark grin. The same grin he gave Sonny Liston, the same one he gave the press when they asked if he was afraid of anyone. He wasn't grinning because something was funny. He was grinning because he was about to do something interesting. "You know why I asked you here?" Ali said. Bruce didn't respond immediately. He had a habit of letting silence do work that words couldn't. A full 3 seconds passed before he spoke. "You want to see something?" Ali laughed. Big, booming laugh that filled the empty gym and bounced off the concrete walls. "I want to see everything. I've been hearing about you for months. Fastest hands in the world, they tell me. Can kick a man in the head before he blinks. Invented his own fighting system. That's what they say." Bruce remained still, face neutral, giving nothing away. Ali continued, "But here's my problem. Everybody talks. Everybody has a reputation. I've fought men with reputations that could fill a library. Most of them couldn't fill a thimble when the bell rang. So I don't care what people say about you. I care about what I can see with my own eyes." This was vintage Ali, the psychological setup, the verbal architecture he built before any physical exchange. He did it to opponents in press conferences, in weigh-ins, in the ring between rounds, controlled the emotional temperature of every room he entered, made you react to him before he ever threw a punch. But Bruce didn't react, didn't tense up, didn't try to match Ali's energy with his own declaration. Just listened, patient, like a man watching rainfall, knowing it would stop eventually. Ali straightened up. His expression shifted. The showmanship dimmed. What replaced it was something few people ever got to see. Genuine curiosity. The real Ali behind the performance. The man who stayed up until 3 a.m. reading philosophy books. The man who asked questions that trainers and cornermen couldn't answer. "Get in the ring," Ali said. Quieter now. Serious. Bruce removed his shoes, placed them neatly beside the ring post, climbed through the ropes in one fluid motion. No wasted effort. Stood across from Ali on the canvas. The size difference was almost comical. Ali had 75 pounds on him, 6 inches of height, arms that were longer than Bruce's entire striking range. By every conventional metric of combat sports, this was a mismatch so severe it bordered on absurd. The gym owner and the 2 sparring partners had moved closer, standing near the ring apron, not sure what they were witnessing but unable to look away. The trainer had stopped wrapping hands entirely. Everyone felt it. The air pressure in the room had changed. Something was about to happen. Ali reached down, grabbed a pair of red training gloves from the corner, pulled them on, flexed his fingers inside the leather. Then he did something that made everyone in the gym hold their breath. He dropped his hands completely, both arms at his sides, chin exposed, body open, the most vulnerable position a fighter can take, the position that gets you knocked unconscious in professional boxing, the position that no champion in history would voluntarily assume in front of another fighter. And then Ali spoke the words that would define this entire encounter, the dare that would become legend among the tiny circle of people who witnessed it. "Hit me," Ali said. "One punch, anywhere you want. Face, body doesn't matter. Land one clean shot on me and I'll train under you. I'll call you teacher. Muhammad Ali will be your student." He paused. Let it sink in. Then added, with that unmistakable confidence that had carried him through every fight of his career, "But if you can't touch me, then all that kung fu talk is just talk." The gym went completely silent. The sparring partners exchanged glances. The trainer's mouth was slightly open. The gym owner leaned forward against the ring apron. Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. Because what Ali had just proposed wasn't a sparring session, wasn't a demonstration. It was a test, a real test, with real stakes and real pride on the line. And the man standing across from him, the man who weighed 140 pounds and had never set foot in a professional boxing ring, didn't flinch, didn't blink, just stood there, perfectly still, processing the challenge with the same calm precision he applied to everything in his life. To understand what happened next, you need to understand what Ali was actually doing. This wasn't arrogance. People who didn't know Ali always confused his confidence for recklessness. They thought he was being foolish, dropping his hands in front of another fighter, inviting a free shot. But Ali had done this before, done it to professional boxers in the ring during actual championship fights, dropped his hands against Cleveland Williams, against Ernie Terrell, against men who had trained their entire lives to exploit exactly that kind of opening, and none of them could capitalize, because Ali's defense wasn't built on his hands, it was built on his eyes. Muhammad Ali possessed what boxing trainers called supernatural reflexes. His reaction time had been tested at a military facility during his draft physical in 1964. The doctors administering the test had to run it 3 times because they didn't believe the initial results. His visual processing speed was so far beyond the normal range that the equipment they used wasn't calibrated to accurately measure it. He could see a punch coming before the puncher had consciously decided to throw it, read the muscular contractions in an opponent's shoulder, the weight shift in their hips, the slight dilation of their pupils that preceded an attack. By the time a fist travelled from point A to point B, Ali had already calculated the trajectory, the speed, the angle, and had moved just enough to make it miss. This is what made the dare so calculated. Ali wasn't being reckless. He was being scientific. He had tested himself against the fastest heavyweight punchers on earth, and none of them could land clean when he was focused and ready. So, in his mind, this challenge to Bruce Lee was a controlled experiment, a way to measure whether this martial artist's speed was real or manufactured by camera tricks and cooperative training partners. Ali genuinely wanted to know. The curiosity was eating at him. But here's what Ali didn't account for. He had spent his entire career reading boxers, men who attacked in straight lines and curved arcs, jabs that travelled forward, hooks that came around, uppercuts that rose vertically. The geometry of boxing is specific and limited. Ali's defensive genius was built on a database of patterns accumulated across thousands of rounds against fighters who all operated within the same fundamental framework. Bruce Lee did not operate within any framework. Bruce stood 6 feet from Ali, hadn't moved since the dare was issued, hadn't shifted his weight, hadn't dropped into any recognizable fighting stance, just stood there, relaxed, arms at his sides, mirroring Ali's posture almost identically. 2 men standing in a boxing ring with their hands down, like 2 strangers waiting for a bus, except the tension between them could have cracked concrete. Ali kept bouncing, kept that rhythm going. His eyes were locked on Bruce, scanning the way he always scanned, looking for the tells, the pre-attack indicators he'd spent his whole career identifying, the shoulder tension, the hip rotation, the breath pattern, the signals that every fighter in history had given away before they attacked. He found nothing. Bruce's body was communicating absolutely zero information. No tension anywhere, no loaded muscles, no preparatory shifting. It was like trying to read a book with blank pages. Ali's entire defensive system depended on reading intentions before they became actions, and Bruce Lee wasn't displaying any intentions to read. For the first time in the gym, Ali stopped bouncing. His feet went flat. The rhythm broke, not because he was scared, because his pattern recognition system had encountered something it had never processed before, an input with no data, a fighter with no tells. The sparring partners near the ring apron noticed the change. They'd watched Ali train dozens of times, had never seen his feet go flat like that, never seen the bounce stop. One of them would later describe it as watching a radar dish spin and suddenly freeze because it detected something it couldn't identify. 5 seconds of absolute stillness. Ali standing with his hands down, Bruce standing with his hands down. Neither man moving. The fluorescent lights overhead buzzing, a water pipe somewhere in the building ticking rhythmically, the gym owner holding his breath so hard his vision was starting to blur at the edges. Then Bruce did something subtle, almost invisible. He exhaled, not a dramatic breath, not a battle cry, just a slow, controlled release of air through his nose, and on that exhale, something in his posture changed. Nothing a casual observer would detect, nothing a camera would catch, but Ali detected it, felt it the way animals feel barometric pressure drop before a storm. The atmosphere between them shifted by a single degree, and Ali, for the first time in his professional life, took a half step backward without being hit. That half step backward told the entire story. Not because it was dramatic, not because it was visible to everyone watching. Most people in the gym didn't even register it. But Ali registered it. His body had made a decision before his conscious mind caught up. The same instinct that had kept him uncut and undamaged through wars with the most dangerous men in heavyweight boxing had just fired a warning signal. Something about the man standing in front of him was different from anything he had ever encountered. Ali reset, planted his feet again, started the bounce back up. But the rhythm was different now, slightly faster, slightly more alert, the way a gazelle drinks water after it smells something downwind. Still functioning, still operating, but elevated, a notch above baseline. Bruce hadn't moved, hadn't twitched, hadn't done anything that anyone in the room could point to and say that's what changed. But something had changed. The equilibrium between the two men had tilted by a fraction of a degree, and both of them knew it. Ali spoke first, breaking the silence with a short laugh that didn't quite reach his eyes. "You're a patient man, Bruce Lee." Bruce's response was almost a whisper. Patience isn't waiting, it's being ready while appearing to wait. Ali processed that, filed it somewhere in the part of his brain that collected things that mattered. Then he reset his challenge, spread his arms wide, chin forward, total exposure. The dare still stands. One clean punch, anywhere, anytime you're ready. What happened next lasted less than 1 second. Later, when the people present tried to describe it, none of them could agree on exactly what they saw. The gym owner said Bruce's hand moved first. One of the sparring partners said Bruce's foot moved first. The trainer said he didn't see any movement at all, just the result of movement, like watching a card trick where the magician's hands are too fast for your eyes to track and you only see the card appear in a different location. Bruce closed the 6-foot gap between them in a single motion. Not a lunge, not a step, something more efficient than either. His body covered distance the way electricity jumps a gap. One frame he was there, the next frame he was here. No wind-up, no loading, no telegraph of any kind, just displacement from one point in space to another. His right hand stopped 1 inch from Ali's jaw. 1 inch. Close enough that Ali could feel the displacement of air against his skin. Close enough that the heat from Bruce's knuckles registered on Ali's cheek. An open palm strike that had accelerated from 0 to full speed and then decelerated to a perfect stop in a space shorter than a matchbox. Ali didn't move, didn't pull back, didn't flinch, but he also didn't evade. His legendary reflexes, the ones that had been tested and measured and marveled at for a decade, had not fired, had not engaged, had not done the thing they always did, which was move his head off the center line before a strike arrived. For the first time in Muhammad Ali's fighting career, a technique had gotten past his defense without him seeing it come. The gym was frozen. The sparring partners were statues. The trainer had stopped breathing. The gym owner's knuckles were white against the ring apron. Nobody understood the full significance of what had just occurred, but everyone understood that something important had happened. Bruce withdrew his hand, stepped back to his original position, returned to that same neutral, relaxed posture, as if nothing had transpired, as if he hadn't just done something that no professional boxer on the planet had managed to accomplish. Ali stood perfectly still for a long moment. His hands were still at his sides. His chin was still forward. The dare posture was unchanged. But behind his eyes, something was processing, recalculating. The man who had solved the puzzle of every fighter he'd ever faced had just encountered a puzzle that didn't fit inside his existing framework. Then Ali did something that shocked every person in that gym more than Bruce's hand speed had, more than the impossibly fast strike that stopped an inch from his face, more than any of it. He smiled, not the showman's grin, not the press conference smirk, not the taunting expression he wore to intimidate opponents, a different smile, genuine, almost childlike. The smile of a man who had been searching for something he couldn't name and had finally found it standing in a run-down gym in South Los Angeles, wearing a plain black shirt and no shoes. Ali looked at Bruce, nodded slowly, and the words that came out of his mouth would rearrange the relationship between these two men for the rest of their lives. Do that again. Not conceding the dare, not admitting defeat, something more interesting, requesting a second look, wanting to study what he couldn't understand, wanting to learn what he couldn't read, the champion of the world standing in a boxing ring, asking a man 75 pounds lighter than him to please show him that again. Bruce didn't do it again, not immediately. Instead, he asked Ali a question that nobody in the room expected. Why did you want to see me? Not confrontational, not loaded with ego. A genuine question asked with genuine curiosity. The kind of question that strips away performance and gets to the raw material underneath. Ali leaned against the ropes. The bounce was gone now. The showmanship had evaporated. What remained was the version of Ali that his closest friends knew, but the public rarely saw. The thinker, the philosopher disguised as a prize fighter, the man who memorized passages from books he never told interviewers he'd read. "Because I'm tired of knowing everything," Ali said. That sentence hung in the air like smoke. The sparring partners glanced at each other. The gym owner shifted his weight. Even the trainer, a man who'd spent 40 years in boxing and thought he'd heard everything, looked up. Ali continued, "I've fought the best boxers alive. Studied their film until I could predict what they'd throw before they knew themselves. I know boxing the way a fish knows water. But boxing is a room. And I've been standing in that room so long I forgot there are other rooms, other buildings, other cities. You just showed me a city I didn't know existed." Bruce listened without interruption, absorbing not just the words but the intention behind them, reading Ali the same way Ali read opponents, except Bruce wasn't looking for weaknesses. He was looking for sincerity, and he found it. "What you did just now," Ali said, gesturing to the space between them where the phantom strike had occurred. "That wasn't speed. I've seen speed. I've fought speed. Floyd Patterson was fast. Sugar Ray Robinson was fast. What you just did wasn't fast. It was invisible. There's a difference, and I need to understand that difference." This is the moment the dynamic between them fundamentally shifted. It stopped being a test, stopped being a dare, stopped being two martial artists measuring each other. It became a conversation between two people who had each reached the ceiling of their respective worlds and realized that the ceiling wasn't the sky. Bruce finally moved, not aggressively. He walked to the ropes, leaned on them across from Ali. Mirror images separated by 10 feet of canvas. The biggest fighter in the world and one of the smallest. The most famous athlete alive and a man most Americans had never heard of. "The reason you couldn't see my hand," Bruce said, "is because you were looking for a punch. Your brain is trained to detect punches. The shoulder engagement, the hip rotation, the weight transfer. Every boxer attacks the same way because boxing teaches everyone the same mechanical sequence. Your defense is built on recognizing that sequence before it completes." Ali nodded slowly. This was exactly right. This was precisely how his defensive system worked. Nobody had ever articulated it back to him so clearly. "I didn't throw a punch," Bruce continued. "I expressed an intention. My body didn't load, didn't rotate. didn't follow any sequence your pattern recognition could identify. The strike originated from stillness and returned to stillness. No preparation, no recovery. Your reflexes had nothing to react to because there was nothing preceding the action that signaled action was coming. The gym was completely silent. The words Bruce was saying weren't technical jargon. They were revelations. He was reverse engineering Ali's greatest gift, his supernatural evasion, and explaining its blind spot with the precision of a surgeon identifying exactly where a nerve is pinched. Ali stared at Bruce for a long time, processing. The man who always had words, who always had a response, who could outtalk any three people in any room, was quiet, thinking, turning the concept over in his mind like a jeweler examining a stone from every angle. "You're telling me my defense has a hole," Ali said finally. "I'm telling you every defense has a hole. The question is whether you want to know where yours is, or whether you'd rather pretend it doesn't exist." Ali pushed off the ropes, stood to his full height, looked down at Bruce with an expression that contained multitudes. Respect, fascination, competitive fire, intellectual hunger, all of it compressed into a single gaze. "Show me," Ali said. "Show me everything, not the punch, not the technique. Show me how you think, how you see fighting, how you built this system that doesn't follow any rules I recognize." Bruce held Ali's gaze, measuring the request against the man making it, determining whether this was ego-wanting ammunition or a mind-wanting education. He decided it was the latter. "Not here," Bruce said. "Not in one afternoon. What I can show you in an hour would be a parlor trick. What I actually want to teach you would take months." Ali didn't hesitate. "Then we start today and figure out the rest tomorrow." That was the agreement. No contract, no handshake even. Just two men in an empty ring deciding that what they could learn from each other mattered more than what either of them already knew. And what followed over the next several months would remain one of the most closely guarded relationships in martial arts history. What happened over the following months wasn't training in any traditional sense. There were no scheduled sessions, no curriculum, no belt progressions or formal instruction. It was more like two master electricians from different countries comparing wiring diagrams. Both understood power, both understood circuitry, but they'd been trained in completely different systems, and the process of translating between those systems produced insights that neither could have reached alone. They met irregularly, sometimes at the same unmarked gym in South Los Angeles, sometimes at Bruce's home in Bel Air, where he'd converted the backyard into a training space with a wooden dummy, heavy bags, and a small grass area for ground movement. Occasionally at locations arranged through mutual contacts, private spaces where two famous men could work without being photographed or interrupted. Ali would arrive with questions, always questions. His mind operated like a research facility that never closed. He'd been replaying their first encounter obsessively, analysing what Bruce had done from every angle his boxing education could provide, and each session he'd come armed with new theories, new hypotheses about what made Bruce's approach so fundamentally different from anything in Western combat sports. One afternoon, 3 weeks into their arrangement, Ali brought a stopwatch. He wanted to time Bruce's strikes, measure them, quantify the speed differential between what Bruce could generate and what elite professional boxers could produce. He believed that hard data would unlock the mystery, that if he could put a number on Bruce's hand speed, he could begin to develop a counter. Bruce agreed to the test. Stood in front of a focus mitt Ali held at chest height. Ali clicked the stopwatch, said go. Bruce struck the pad. Ali clicked stop, looked at the display, shook his head, reset. They did it again. Same result, and again, and again. After 12 repetitions, Ali put the stopwatch in his pocket and didn't bring it back for any subsequent session. The numbers didn't help. They actually made things worse, because the stopwatch confirmed what Ali had felt in the ring that first day. Bruce's striking speed wasn't marginally faster than a professional boxer's. It existed in a different category entirely. The gap wasn't something that could be closed through training or conditioning. It was architectural, built into the fundamental design of how Bruce generated force and delivered it to a target. But speed wasn't what fascinated Ali most. What kept him coming back, session after session, was Bruce's philosophy of combat, the ideas behind the techniques. Bruce would spend 20 minutes on a physical demonstration and then 2 hours explaining the principle underneath it. why economical motion defeats powerful motion, why a fighter who adapts in real time will always overcome a fighter who executes memorized sequences, why the concept of style itself was a prison that trapped martial artists inside predictable patterns. Ali pushed back constantly, challenged everything. He wasn't a passive student absorbing wisdom from a guru. He was a critical thinker stress-testing every concept against his own decades of experience. When Bruce argued that classical boxing stances created unnecessary rigidity, Ali countered with specific examples of fights where his orthodox stance had saved his life. When Bruce demonstrated trapping techniques designed to immobilize a boxer's arms, Ali showed him how a skilled heavyweight could use raw physical strength to power through any trap a smaller man could set. These disagreements were productive, electric. Two brilliant minds colliding and creating sparks that illuminated corners neither had explored. Bruce later told close associates that Ali was the most intelligent training partner he'd ever worked with. Not the most skilled in Bruce's own methods, obviously, but the most capable of understanding abstract concepts and immediately identifying their practical applications and limitations. Ali, for his part, incorporated elements of what Bruce taught him into his existing framework. Not techniques. Ali never threw a side kick or attempted a trapping sequence in a boxing match, but principles, the idea of formlessness, the concept of attacking without telegraph, the philosophy that deception matters more than power. These ideas seeped into Ali's approach and subtly influenced how he prepared for fights in the years that followed. There's a moment from their private sessions that one witness described years later. Ali was trying to replicate Bruce's non-telegraphic strike, throwing jabs from a neutral position without the preparatory shoulder movement that all boxers use instinctively. After dozens of failed attempts, Ali stopped, stood in the center of the training space, looked at Bruce with an expression mixing frustration and admiration in equal measure. "My body won't let me do what yours does," Ali said. 20 years of boxing built walls inside my muscles that I can't tear down." Bruce nodded. "Those walls also made you the greatest boxer alive. The goal isn't to tear them down. The goal is to build windows in them." Ali laughed at that. Genuine, full-bodied laughter. The kind that comes from recognizing truth delivered perfectly. He repeated that line for years afterward to people in his inner circle. Build windows, not tear down walls. It became something of a private mantra, a reminder that growth doesn't require destruction of what already exists. But the most significant outcome of their relationship wasn't any technique or philosophy. It was something deeper that neither man fully articulated at the time, but both carried forward into everything they did afterward. The sessions tapered off naturally, not because of disagreement or loss of interest. Life intervened the way it always does with extraordinary people carrying extraordinary obligations. Ali had fights to prepare for, a heavyweight division that demanded his constant attention, legal battles over his draft refusal that consumed enormous amounts of time and emotional energy. Bruce had films to make, a martial arts revolution to build, a philosophy to codify and spread to a world that wasn't quite ready to receive it. Their last private session took place on a Thursday evening in late 1970. Nothing ceremonial about it. Neither man knew it would be the final one. They worked for about 90 minutes in Bruce's backyard, lighter than usual, more talking than moving. Two men who had developed a mutual understanding so deep that physical demonstration had become almost unnecessary. They could communicate concepts through conversation alone, each trusting the other to translate words into movement internally. As Ali was leaving that night, he stopped at the gate to Bruce's property, turned around. The Los Angeles sky behind him was purple and orange, that specific California sunset that makes everything look like it was painted by someone who uses too much color, but somehow gets away with it. "I never trained under you," Ali said. "Officially, that was the dare. Land one punch and I'll be your student. You landed the punch. Technically, I owe you." Bruce leaned against his front door, arms crossed. "You showed up for months, asked questions, listened, challenged everything I said and made me defend it, made me sharpen my own ideas because your counter-arguments were better than most people's best arguments. What would you call that if not training?" Ali considered this. "I'd call it two men too stubborn to admit they needed each other." Bruce smiled. One of the rare full smiles that people close to him said could change the temperature of a room. "Then we're even." Ali nodded, got in his car, drove away. They saw each other a handful of times after that. Public events, brief encounters at gatherings where famous people collected in the same rooms. Polite, warm. But the private work was finished. The exchange had been completed. Whatever each man needed from the other had been transferred. Bruce died in July 1973. He was 32 years old. When Ali received the news, he was in training camp preparing for a fight. The person who delivered the message said Ali sat down on a folding chair in the gym, stared at the floor for a long time and said nothing. Then he stood up, walked to the heavy bag and hit it once. A single jab. No telegraph. No shoulder load. No hip rotation. Just a strike that originated from stillness and returned to stillness. The cleanest, most economical punch anyone in that training camp had ever seen him throw. Then he went back to his regular training and never mentioned it to anyone present. The people who witnessed their private sessions, the gym owner, the sparring partners, the trainer, a few members of Bruce's inner circle, kept the story quiet for years. Partly out of respect, partly because who would believe them? Muhammad Ali, the greatest heavyweight champion in boxing history, privately studying with a 140-pound martial artist from Hong Kong. The story sounded invented. Sounded like the kind of myth that martial arts magazines fabricated to sell copies. But the evidence lived in both men's subsequent work. In Ali's increasingly sophisticated defensive movement during the early 70s, the subtle incorporation of angles and evasion patterns that didn't come from any boxing textbook. In Bruce's evolving philosophy of Jeet Kune Do, which began emphasizing the importance of understanding an opponent's trained patterns and attacking the gaps between them, a concept that sounded remarkably similar to what a master boxer might contribute to a conversation about combat. They built windows in each other's walls. Ali gave Bruce a deeper understanding of how elite athletes in structured systems think and adapt under pressure. Bruce gave Ali a framework for seeing beyond the boundaries of his own discipline. Neither man became the other. Neither abandoned what made them great. They simply expanded, added rooms to their respective houses without demolishing the foundations. The dare that started everything, hit me with one punch and I'll train under you, was never really about the punch. Ali knew that before he issued it. The dare was an invitation disguised as a challenge, a way for the most prideful man in sports to ask for help without admitting he was asking. And Bruce understood that immediately. Answered the dare not to prove his speed, but to accept the invitation underneath it. 2 men, 1 ring, a locked door and an afternoon that wasn't supposed to matter. But it mattered. It mattered because it proved that mastery isn't a destination. It's a conversation. And the greatest fighters who ever lived weren't great because they knew everything. They were great because they never stopped asking what they didn't know. Ali and Bruce, the champion and the philosopher. The dare and the punch that changed both of them forever.